It is day 10 since the militant group Hamas attacked Israel. The Israeli military is preparing for the next stages of the war against the Hamas militant group, while humanitarian crisis still looms over Gaza. In the latest, US President Joe Biden said in an interview that any move by Israel to occupy the Gaza Strip again would be a big mistake.
I think it'd be a big mistake. Look, what happened in Gaza, in my view, is Hamas and the extreme elements of Hamas don't represent all the Palestinian people. And I think that it would be a mistake for Israel to occupy Gaza again. But to going in and taking out the extremists, the Hezbollah is up north, but Hamas down south is a necessary requirement.
US and Israeli officials are also discussing the possibility of US President Joe Biden visiting Israel at the invitation of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A visit by Biden will show support for the biggest US ally in West Asia. The White House, however, has denied any comments on this. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken continued his outreach activities in the West Asian region. He completed his 6-nation tour with a visit to Jordan. Blinken says the nations in the region believe any spillover of the Israel-Hamas conflict must be averted. Blinken, after his meeting with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, said, and I'm quoting here, Rafah crossing will be reopened. We're putting in place with the United Nations, with Egypt, with Israel, with others, a mechanism by which to get the assistance in and to get it to people who need it. Now, Blinken did not give a specific time for the crossing to reopen, though. This, while Palestinian leadership Mahmoud Abbas said that the policies and actions of Hamas do not represent the Palestinian people. Staying with diplomacy, Iran has also warned Israel of escalation if it failed to end aggression against Palestinians and stated the resistance front can defend itself. So far, 1,400 people have been killed in the Hamas attacks and the attacks since then, most of them civilians. Meanwhile, Israel's attacks in the days since have flattened neighborhoods and killed at least 2,670 people in Gaza, the majority ordinary Palestinians. Meanwhile, the Israeli military claims 155 people were being held hostage by Hamas since the militant group staged its deadly attack last week. Foreign nationals currently in Gaza can cross over to Egypt, this according to the Palestinian embassy. These nationals do carry dual nationality and can cross over to Egypt. According to Palestinian embassy, humanitarian aid will also begin crossing into Gaza once the crossing opens up. Meanwhile, Israel said it is restoring water supply to southern parts of Gaza. Israeli Minister of Energy and Infrastructure, this move will help push civilians to move south and would make it possible to tighten Israel's siege on Gaza. This comes as the sound of massive blasts continue to be heard in Gaza as an Israeli ground offensive looms. All right, for more on this, we're being joined live by Professor Alon Burstein from California. He's an Israel Institute Fellow and a visiting assistant professor at the Department of Political Science, University of California, Irvine. Welcome to the broadcast, Professor.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Professor, let's just start off with this. I just want to quickly go over a few statements which have come in from the US and just want to take your thoughts on that. US is arming Israel on one side. They have been aiding in terms of ammunition, and it's not as if Israel's attempt at occupying Gaza or what we're seeing right now, that is any secret. Everyone knows what Israel is sort of gunning for at the moment, and they've already teased and they've already spoken about a ground invasion which is going to happen, and it's about to happen any time. Now, this statement which has come in from the US president, that any attempt to occupy Gaza or move on Gaza will be a big mistake. Talk to us about US support to Israel, and do you feel US is backtracking somewhere, seeing the way it has suffered in West Asia, because Saudi Arabia has backed off from any kind of normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel, which was being brokered by the US?
I think it was a poor choice of words on behalf of President Biden's behalf, just because it's unclear exactly that. It's unclear what does he mean by that. Israel has openly stated that it plans to invade the Gaza Strip. There are reports in New York Times that Israel plans to occupy Gaza City in order to depose Hamas political and military infrastructure from the area. I believe that what President Biden meant to say is that reoccupying the Gaza Strip in the sense of Israel's long-standing occupation since 1967 until 2005, where it had active presence in the Gaza Strip and Israeli settlements in the Gaza Strip, I believe that he meant that that would be a mistake, but it was a poor choice of words exactly because of this confusion. So what are you calling for? It's unclear.
You know, but he didn't mince any words. He said it's a big mistake. He just said those two words, and even if he's gone wrong with that as well, one really needs to wait and see what US is sort of gunning for when it arms Israel on one side, but is also, you know, saying that it'll be a big mistake if they continue using those arms to occupy Gaza, which seems to be what Israel is going for at the moment. I also want to come to you, Professor, on Iran's axis of resistance. Now, a lot of statements have come in from the Iranian foreign minister. He said that their axis of resistance, you know, it will take care. They have non-state actors who are also there in the region. It's probably a reference to Hezbollah and other groups which are there. Talk to us about what a role Iran is playing here in diffusing the situation or increasing it further.
Well, Iran's axis of resistance or axis of terrorism or axis of evil, depending on every government is calling it something different, is made up solely of non-state actors. It is Iran, and then it is Hezbollah, then it is different militias in Iraq and Syria, Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the Houthi movement in Yemen. All of these are either funded directly by Iran or an actual arm of Iran and armed by it in a very, very, very systematic way. So Iran plays a major role in this. They do not have control of the Hamas movement the same way they do of Hezbollah. They cannot tell Hamas, you must do this or you must not do that. However, they do have control over Hezbollah, and they do have control largely over the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and they could restrain these organizations if they wanted to. Iran has very little interest in doing that. Iran probably knew about this impending attack that was going to come. There's more and more reports, even though the United States is denying that. More and more reports in Hamas and Hezbollah that Iran knew about this, and Iran is openly threatening that they will activate their organizations and enter into the fray. But it is important to note, Iran itself, for all of its rhetoric, has never once sent a single soldier to fight Israel, never once lost any soldier to fight Israel. They're very good at activating these different organizations to fight Israel, and then Lebanon, Gaza, possibly Yemen, are the lives that are lost in turn. Iran doesn't actually endanger its own people in doing that. That's part of its strategy in the Middle East.
Professor, I want to come to this next. Israel's invitation to President Joe Biden. Now, there has been no comment on this from the White House. Do you see this happening? Do you see the US president stepping foot on Israeli soil at this juncture?
Honestly, it's hard to say at this point. The entire array of world leaders have come to Israel to express solidarity and support in the wake of Hamas's horrific attack 8 days ago. So the commissioner of the EU, Anthony Blinken, foreign secretaries, everyone is expressing their support. President Biden may want to come to the region not so much to express his support, but more actually to restrain Netanyahu. We have to remember that Israel is coming into this war with the most hawkish right-wing government it ever had. Now, right now, it is true that Benny Gantz and other parties have joined Israel's coalition and may make it a little bit more moderate. But it's in light of the hawkish government, it's in light of the fact that the Israeli cabinet, at least before the war, was made up of ministers who openly called to reoccupy Gaza and to put settlements back in Gaza. It's in light of that that President Biden made his speech saying, don't reoccupy Gaza and don't put more Israeli settlements there. So he may want to come to the region, I would argue, less to actually show Israel support, more to show, I'm showing you support, but now you have to listen to me. You have to have a head on your shoulders when you go into Gaza. You cannot just go in and think you'll reoccupy it for the next 50 years. That's not going to be a plan with U.S. armaments and U.S. support.
Thank you, Professor, for all your inputs. And one can only hope that once the U.S. president is there on Israeli soil, the choice of words remains correct. Thank you so much for joining in on the broadcast.
Thank you. Have a good day.